Hey, what's up folks? Today I wanted to show you how I managed to eat my favorite foods on occasion while dieting down or cutting for fat loss. This is something I show my clients a lot, and today what we're doing is making pizza. I figured out a structure to make pizza fit my meal plan to the T. The reason I like to do this is that really when people try to diet down and lose fat, they usually take these kind of overly restrictive routes. Now, of course, some restriction is required as far as your calories go and some of your macros. But when we take these overly restrictive plans, odds are you're not going to adhere to them for very long. So what we want to create is a certain flexibility for sustainability, right? The more sustainable it is, the longer you're going to adhere to the plan and lose the fat that you want to lose. Now, of course, there are many ways to do this. A lot of people will just simply fast and then eat some pizza at night, for example, if they wanted to. And if that works for you, that's great. However, I like to eat and train. So I like to eat before I train. I like to have my biggest meal after I train. And then the other thing is that when we do the fasting, for example, I eat roughly 200 grams of protein per day. That's going to be really hard for me to do while fasting, right? If I wanted to eat 200 grams of protein and I fast, I only have like a 4 or 6 hour feeding window. That's going to be really, really difficult and uncomfortable. So the reason we want to eat that amount of protein is that we want to maximize muscle retention. And when you fast, you become a little bit catabolic, and I like to be anabolic. Now, if fasting works for you, like I said, do it, but it's just not a thing for me. I eat and train, and I try to preserve as much muscle as possible while plunging into a calorie deficit, which becomes catabolic to a certain point. So let's take a look at the ingredients. So today is an active recovery day for me. I'm not training heavy. I'm just doing some light cardio and mobility. And every meal that I eat on active recovery days currently has 40 grams of carbohydrates in it. And I'm typically eating about 5 meals per day. Okay, so this thin crust pizza from H-E-B, if you don't have an H-E-B in your area, you can just find thin crust pizza at your store, has 32 grams of carbohydrates per serving. So that leaves me with 8 grams of carbohydrates coming from something else, like the pizza sauce. So for the pizza sauce, this pizza sauce has 10 grams of carbohydrates, which is 2 more than I need, but really 2 grams, not a big deal. I usually ask my clients to stay within a 5 gram range to their best ability. So 10 grams of carbohydrates per half a cup or per 125 grams, which is the serving. So I'll just cut that a little bit. I'll probably do like 115 grams of this sauce on the crust, and that will be my carbohydrate source for this meal. It'll come to exactly 40 grams. And next up we have protein and some fat. Okay, so these are string cheese sticks. Normally I'd buy fat-free or low-fat mozzarella, but they just didn't have it. I'm gonna pull some of these apart, not a big deal. Now, one of these sticks has 6 grams of protein in it. It also has 2.5 grams of fat, so I need to factor that into what I'm eating here. Now, I'm having 10 grams of fat in each and every meal today. So I need to be careful there. A real common mistake is people looking at protein only and then overlooking how much fat is in that protein source. So for example, eggs are a great source of protein. Now, if you're trying to get, say, 25 grams of protein from eggs only, you're really gonna jack your calories up from fat, right? Or peanut butter is another example. I eat, 4 tablespoons of peanut butter and I get protein in it. It's like, you do, that's awesome. But you also get probably 600-700 calories from fat alone. Those are fat sources with some protein, okay? So I'm gonna calculate this. I need about 35 grams of protein today. So I'm gonna do this. I'm also gonna do some lean ground beef. 96% lean, 4% fat, lean ground beef. Now, I cooked this for quite a while, so there's really not much fat in there really at all. So if I want 35 grams of protein on this pizza, I need to figure out how much I'm getting from the cheese sticks, which is 12 grams from the 2 sticks, and then how much I'm getting from this, all right? So I need 23 grams of protein from the beef and the 12 grams of protein from the cheese sticks. So it's real simple. I don't need to weigh out the cheese sticks because I know how much is in there thanks to the package and the portion size. However, I do want to weigh out this ground beef, and I know that 23 grams is going to be roughly 4 ounces. Now, the reason I'm doing less of this is that I want the cheese on my pizza, but also when we do a lot of heavy kind of proteins and meats on the pizza on a thin crust, it gets too floppy, and I like to pick it up and eat it real quick. All right, so that's about 4 ounces right there, right on the dot. 4. There we go, perfect. Okay, so that's my protein taken care of for this meal. We're almost there. So we know how much protein we've got from both the lean ground beef and the mozzarella cheese sticks. We also know that we have 5 grams of fat from those cheese sticks. Then we also know that we have 40 grams of carbohydrates, 32 from the pizza crust and 8 roughly from the pizza sauce. We're almost there, right? We've got 5 more grams of fat to go. So how we're gonna do that is an olive oil spray, which is really, really not much at all. So I'm just gonna take that and put it around the edges real quick, right? A quarter-second spray of this is literally 0 calories. That's what they say, right? So I probably did a full second there, so I'm gonna assume there's probably a few grams of fat in there. The other thing I'm gonna do here is Parmesan, right? And I'm gonna do this after the pizza is baked, but this Parmesan is 1.5 grams of fat per 5 grams or 2 tablespoons. Those are level tablespoons, not heaping, right? That also has 2 grams of protein in it. So I'm gonna get a little bit of extra protein in this meal, not a big deal, but I'm gonna assume that with that oil currently, there's gonna be about 7 or 8 grams of fat. So all I really wanna do is get a little bit of this on there, and I've got 10 grams of fat, 40 grams of carbohydrates, and about 30 grams of protein coming from those protein sources. All right, so let's get it in the oven. And away we go. So while I'm waiting that 10, 12 minutes for that to cook, I've gone ahead and measured out the exact amount of Parmesan I need, which is 5 grams. That's gonna help me get to 10 grams of fat in this meal. And then I've also, for health purposes and volume purposes, gone ahead and made a small side salad with no dressing, so I don't need to count those calories from carbs or fats or whatever's in there. I'm putting in some cucumber and zucchini in there just for volume purposes and health purposes. When we talk about food types, we need to think volume when you're trying to lose fat, and that volume is what keeps you feeling full, right? So if I got in this amount of macros in just a few small bites, like in a thin crust pizza that's not gonna fill me up, odds are I'm gonna be really hungry still afterwards, right? So I fill up on some very low calorie foods like a side salad with some vegetables in there, okay? Now, when we're talking about food types and fat loss, it is important to eat lots of low calorie, voluminous foods like vegetables that are non-starchy, right? Not that they burn fat or anything, they just keep you feeling full, and also your health purposes, right? You get the fiber in there and whatnot. On the other hand, when we're training for size and performance, it's incredibly difficult to get a lot of vegetables into your meals because you're just eating a ton of carbs, fats, and proteins. So sometimes, you know, those vegetables go bye-bye temporarily while you're really performing at your highest level. That being said, we're ready to go. Food types definitely matter for fat loss, but not because they burn fat, right? It's just because they fill you up and they don't leave you feeling overly deprived and fixating on food with an empty stomach all the time. All right, so let's get into that pizza. Oh. And there it is. All right, guys, I hope that helps and shed some light on the fact that you don't need to be overly restricted and remove all of your favorite foods for the sake of getting lean. You can absolutely do it as long as you make healthier choices the majority of the time. You see, the quicker you try and speed up the process and the more extreme the route, the shorter that process is lived. And this process is much longer than you think it needs to be. So give this a shot, have some food that you like on occasion, factor it into your meal plan, and you're gonna be good to go, right? This creates the sustainability that you need to achieve your goals long-term, right? And we're looking for long-term results, not a quick result and then right back to your old habits. That's the pattern too many people are in, and that's the pattern that's holding you back. Time to break the cycle.